When a WWE Hall of Famer drops a bombshell accusation about racism in wrestling, then proceeds to torch AEW's booking while he's at it, you know we've entered the wildest timeline where nothing is off limits and everyone's got receipts they're ready to share. D-Von Dudley just set the wrestling world on fire with some explosive claims, and we need to break down what was actually said versus what the internet turned it into, because this story got messier than a TLC match in about 5 seconds flat. Before we dive into the actual D-Von Dudley story, let's address the completely fabricated clickbait title about a WWE star accusing Triple H of being racist after getting fired with no notice. That didn't happen. Triple H hasn't been accused of racism by any released WWE talent recently, and if he had been, every credible wrestling journalist would be covering it extensively. This is another example of fake sensational headlines designed to generate clicks by exploiting serious topics like racism. It's gross, it's irresponsible, and it needs to stop. Now let's talk about what actually did happen with D-Von Dudley, which is controversial enough without needing to invent additional drama. D-Von Dudley made headlines last week when he revealed in an interview that certain top officials in WWE said racist things to him during his time with the company. That's a serious allegation that immediately got everyone's attention, as it absolutely should. Racism in any workplace is unacceptable, and professional wrestling has a long and complicated history with race relations that the industry is still reckoning with today. When a respected veteran and Hall of Famer like D-Von speaks up about experiencing racism, people rightfully pay attention. The interesting and frustrating part about D-Von's initial comments was that he seemingly pointed the finger at someone specific but didn't actually name names. He referenced certain top officials and made it pretty clear he was talking about someone in particular, but left enough ambiguity that speculation ran absolutely wild. Wrestling fans and media immediately started playing detective, trying to figure out who D-Von was talking about based on context clues and his career timeline. In a new interview with Duke Loves Wrasslin', D-Von decided to clarify his statements and provide more specific details about what he experienced and who he was referencing. He went out of his way to defend several top WWE officials from that era, specifically naming Vince McMahon, John Laurinaitis, Michael Hayes, and Pat Patterson as people who weren't the problem. That's significant because it narrows down who he was actually talking about and protects the reputations of people who weren't involved. After providing that context and defending those specific individuals, D-Von revealed that he was indeed talking about Jim Ross. That's a massive revelation because Jim Ross is one of the most beloved figures in wrestling history, the voice of a generation, and someone who's generally respected across the industry. Having a Hall of Famer accuse him of saying racist things is not a small matter and puts Ross in an extremely uncomfortable position of either addressing the allegations or remaining silent while the court of public opinion debates what happened. But the D-Von Dudley interview saga didn't stop there, because apparently one controversy wasn't enough for the week. Dudley was also making news for comments he made to Video Gamer about the KKK gaining power behind the scenes in executive positions in pro wrestling. That's an explosive claim that immediately got aggregated, misquoted, and distorted across various wrestling news outlets and social media platforms. Duke Loves Wrasslin' went hard on Video Gamer during their interview with D-Von, calling them out for allegedly misquoting Dudley and making it sound like he said the KKK literally invaded WWE during his time there. The distinction matters because there's a huge difference between saying the KKK as an organization infiltrated WWE versus making a broader metaphorical statement about racism in workplace culture. D-Von clarified that he wasn't saying the KKK literally invaded WWE, but rather was making a more general statement about how racist individuals sometimes trade their sheets for suits and end up in positions of power across various workplaces, including potentially in wrestling. It's unclear from the interview whether D-Von was primarily blaming Video Gamer for the misquote or whether he was pointing fingers at news aggregators who took his words and twisted them further for clicks and engagement. Regardless of who's most at fault, the damage was done and D-Von felt compelled to clarify that no, he was not claiming the KKK as an organization had infiltrated WWE. Context matters, and in the age of viral headlines and social media outrage, context is usually the first casualty. Throughout the Duke Loves Wrasslin' interview, D-Von praised WWE extensively, which is interesting given that he was simultaneously calling out racist behavior he experienced while working there. He made it clear that WWE and TNA are where he wants to be career-wise, which suggests his issues are with specific individuals rather than the companies themselves. But then D-Von made it equally clear that he wants absolutely nothing to do with AEW, which is where this story takes another wild turn. D-Von revealed that he's had meetings with AEW president Tony Khan, and apparently those meetings were all a bust. Whatever was discussed or proposed clearly didn't work out to D-Von's satisfaction. He claimed he's never buried Tony Khan personally despite those failed meetings, which is a very diplomatic way of approaching things. But then, in what can only be described as the wrestling equivalent of saying no offense, right before saying something extremely offensive, D-Von proceeded to absolutely bury Tony Khan's booking in AEW. According to D-Von, Tony Khan's booking is a significant problem in AEW. He didn't hold back or sugarcoat his criticism, basically saying that Khan doesn't know how to properly book wrestling storylines and talent. That's a scorching take from a Hall of Famer who's been in the business for decades and presumably knows a thing or two about what works and what doesn't. Whether you agree with D-Von's assessment or think he's being bitter about those failed meetings is up for debate, but he definitely made his opinion crystal clear. D-Von also called out QT Marshall specifically, labeling him as a Tony Khan butt-kisser. That's not exactly subtle criticism. Marshall has been with AEW since the beginning and has various roles behind the scenes and occasionally on camera. D-Von suggesting that Marshall is one of the yes-men surrounding Tony Khan who contributes to AEW's booking issues is a direct shot that Marshall probably wasn't expecting from a WWE Hall of Famer he may have never even worked with directly. What makes this entire situation so fascinating is how it touches on multiple controversial topics simultaneously. We've got racism allegations against a beloved industry figure, complaints about workplace culture in wrestling, criticisms of AEW's creative direction, and personal beef between various wrestling personalities. It's like D-Von decided to air every grievance he's been holding onto and just let it all fly in one interview marathon. The Jim Ross racism allegations are obviously the most serious part of this story and deserve to be taken seriously and investigated properly. Racism isn't something to joke about or dismiss.